I worked at a woman's clothing mail-order catalog call center. During training, a veteran worker was talking about getting to know the frequent callers and the story of one of them. So, an old lady used to call in often. She was blind but would have someone help her pick out things. The manager of her apartment complex, I think. She would order often, and they got to know her by name. Well, eventually she stopped calling in. So they contacted the number they had for her, which was the apartment manager's number. The old lady was fine, but had to be moved into a new building because, well, the old blind lady was very meticulous with her cleaning. She cleaned everything often, at old lady level, so the manager had to come in and do some maintenance for the first time in many months. Every room in her apartment, above head level, had thick webs and nests of black widow spiders, hundreds and hundreds. Can you imagine an oblivious old lady walking around blind in a house she thinks is spotlessly clean, but there is a soul-freezing nightmare swarming all over the ceiling? So there's this old bridge in my town that's supposedly haunted by a young girl who drowned in the river beneath it. Apparently, if you came at the right time, you could hear her scream. When me and my buddies were in high school, we had nothing better to do than go ghost hunting. Being from a town of about 6,000 people in good old southern Illinois, half of that being prison inmates and mental health patients, you have to get a bit creative to have any sort of fun. Anyway, we get to this bridge about 3 a.m. and we sit there for a while. Nothing. About 20 minutes go by and we're all skeptical. Everyone's joking about how dumb this was, or trying to creep each other out. All of a sudden, screaming. The most blood-curdling, high-pitched screaming you've ever heard. It wasn't just one scream either. It never stopped. It kept going even as if we were driving away in our cars, but that's not even the worst of it. Me and one of my buddies hightailed it back to the cars as soon as we heard the initial scream, because you had to walk a bit downhill to get underneath the bridge. Halfway back, we both go from sprinting to a dead stop at the exact same moment. I never asked him what he saw, because I saw it for myself. It was a girl running on all fours into the woods. I don't talk about this much because it gives me the chills just thinking about it, and nobody ever takes me seriously. I live in the north of Switzerland. We have a lot of old military bunkers from the Second World War. When I was 7 or 8 years old, 3 friends of mine and I went out to explore one of these bunkers, who was built on a hillside inside of a small forest. The main door was jammed, so we had to break it up. We found a big log nearby and used it as a battering ram. After many tries, the door won't budge, but there was a peephole. It was about 10 centimeters in diameter. We opened it and illuminated the dark inside. There was a long, ruined and dark hallway with rooms to the left and to the right side. We couldn't see the end of the hallway. It was just too long. Every one of us wanted to catch a glimpse of the inside, when one of my friends says, "There is a small light at the end of that hallway." This light was not there when I watched trowel through the peephole. So I pushed him away and took a second look. What I saw gave me a shiver. There was not a small light. It looked more like a flashlight pointed directly towards me, and behind it was a silhouette of a person. I walked a few steps back and said, "There's someone in there." At the same moment, someone or something knocked on the door from the inside of the bunker. This was the moment we got into panic and started screaming and ran away. I was so scared I ran straight home and locked the door. The next day in school, my friends and I talked about the event. We came to the explanation that probably some older kids have played a prank on us. 1 week later, we went to the same bunker again. But, as we saw, the welded connection. That should keep the door locked, where rusty and not broken. We just left without saying a word to each other. It was impossible for someone to open this door before us, and this was the only entrance. I still live in the same region. Standing in front of this door again was not very comfortable. The story happened about 20 years ago, but it still looks the same. My friend and I time traveled, or that's the easiest explanation. We were in high school and he was taking my bus back to my house with me. We get home around 2:45 and my mother gets home around 3. We decided to go hiking before my mother could say no, so we left a note on the counter and took off. We took our usual route up the backyard hill, making sure to avoid the crazy people that resided in the makeshift homes up there. Climbed some trees for a while, explored a section of the car graveyard we hadn't checked out before, and other typical teenage exploring type stuff. We took a break near the top of the mountain. It was usually beautiful that day. Incredibly green, and there were seriously visible light beams shining down through the canopy. Like seriously pretty stuff. So of course I started running around through the light and decided we should probably start getting back because my mother was probably going to be pissed off if we missed dinner. On the way back we stumbled onto a pond we had never encountered before. It was small and had a single wooden boat on it. There were also a few teepees around the pond. Not old teepees. They looked ratty and unusable. We decided someone was probably living there and took a new path back home. We climbed down and up an old quarry and dropped off on the main road that leads to my house. We were absolutely filthy and over a mile from my place. We just walked the road back to my house. We arrived home before my mother, which seemed strange, so I threw out the note so she wouldn't know we were out gallivanting. She got home like 3 minutes later, wondering how we'd gotten so dirty at school. She arrived home at her usual time, and we'd only been gone a grand total of 13 to 15 minutes. We honestly don't talk about that day anymore. It's too confusing. But yeah, time travel. When I was 12, I was in bed one night with my bedroom door open. I was watching TV, sitting somewhat upright with a pillow behind my head and shoulders. The TV was on one corner of the room, and the door was in the other corner. The room was differently shaped, and basically where the door was cut off, the corner of what would normally be a perfect square floor plan. So, with my bed lying between the two, when I watched TV I could see out the door. I was scared of aliens, so don't judge. So I was watching TV, and out of the door is completely black. Next thing you know, something catches my eye, and I look over out the door, and this all-white human-shaped object is moving past the door from left to right. And when I stared directly at it, it turned and looked at me. A split second later, it was past the right threshold of the door, and I was left petrified. Shaking in my covers, nearly shitting myself, I then hear the door to the garage open up, and then I shit myself even more. I run downstairs and greeted by my drunk 19-year-old brother getting home. I spill out what just happened to me, and he grabs a bat, and we check every room, under the beds and closets. Everyone was dead asleep. We found nothing. Needless to say, I never sleep with my door open again. Still to this day, 11 years later. This is actually my husband's story. When he was in high school, he and some of his friends had a camp out at his friend's aunt and uncle's house in the country. They did the usual cooking out, putting up a tent, etc. At some point during the night, my husband went for a short walk near a small pond on the property to take a leak. As he was doing his business, he looked up and saw a man walking around the edge of the pond towards him. He clearly saw this man, who was walking with his head down. He described him as wearing a red flannel shirt, jeans, and work boots. He thought that it was very strange that this guy was out walking around a pond in the country in the middle of the night. So he just said, "Hey man, what are you doing?" He didn't get an answer, and the guy kept walking past him and was now facing away when suddenly he wasn't just there anymore. My husband went and told his friends what happened. The boy whose relatives owned the property was shocked and immediately ran to the house and woke them up. He had my husband describe what he had seen. The boy's aunt immediately started to cry. She had been seeing the same guy in the house, sometimes standing at the foot of the bed, and her husband did not believe her. He had been accusing her of insanity, and apparently they were at the brink of divorce from this issue. She was so relieved that someone else had been able to validate what she'd been experiencing. During our drive home from a family trip, our car hit black ice on a curve that sent us rolling. That day I didn't wear my seatbelt. I was ejected out of the car by breaking through my window using my face as a ram. From my perspective, 1 second I'm in a car, and next thing I know I'm laying in some bushes. I try getting up, but I'm stopped by an intense pain in my shoulder. Honestly, I don't know if I passed out or just went to sleep, but at this point, I lost consciousness. After an unknown amount of time to me, through my closed eyes, I can see a flash of light shine over me. My dad found me, lifted me to my feet with ease, and pushed me towards where the total car and my family was. A distinct detail I remember about this moment is how firm the hands were. The unexplainable part, after talking to my brother, I realized something. My dad never actually went looking for me. My mom was badly damaged and no one had any idea what happened to me. They actually assumed the worst and thought I was dead, under the car. We didn't even have a flashlight. I don't know who or what found me laying there, but something did. I distinctly remember the light shining over me before firm, strong hands lifted me up like I was paper. Before talking about it, I always just assumed it had been my dad. I post this every now and again, just kinda hoping an answer finds it. My collarbone healed, so it's protruding a bit. It stuck as a permanent reminder of that day. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you'd like to, you can follow me at Twitter. The handle is @FuzzyPantaloons, and I'll see you all next time.